Hello fans and welcome to the very first edition of Tropics Topics. It is your soccer podcast, all things Central Florida soccer. Of course, we'll talk about the tropics, both indoor and outdoor, on our podcast, but we want to expand our horizon and make sure we look at all kinds of soccer going on in Polk County and throughout Central Florida. So later on in this edition of Tropics Topics, we will have Brian Fallon, who is the head women's soccer coach at Weber University in Babson Park, and he will give us a preview of the 2019 Sun Conference season, which kicks off here in late August, so we'll look forward to that. And we'll have other players and guests along the way this fall as we get ready for our fourth season in the Major Arena Soccer League kicking off at the RP Funding Center. Our first guest with us this morning is Chris Economides. He's the Chief Operating Officer of the Tropics, all things Tropics, if you will, the outdoor Tropics and the indoor Tropics. Chris, thank you for joining us. And first, let's look back a little bit before we look ahead, because this summer was a one to remember for the Tropics and their fans. I'm not sure any of us expected. We knew we'd be pretty good. I don't know if anyone expected a perfect season and a national championship, but talk just, if you will, about kind of how that has really helped put the Tropics on the map and bring some attention to the franchise beyond just the indoor game now.
Well, as you just thank you, first of all, Brian. Second of all, yeah, you mentioned, we expected to have a good team, but having won some championships in the past, it's not an easy thing to do. Things have to fall your way. Obviously, you have to have the talent behind you. So I think everything went beyond our expectations. To finish 18-0, to win a national championship, and in the fashion that we did, in the playoffs, speaks volumes to the great job that head coach Lucas Teixeira did. Give credit to the players, and again, it helps create, and this is Dr. Yacovides' vision here, helps to create some history, helps to create a foundation, and now as he has said, nobody can ever take that away from us. So it was a great first season. It sort of leads us into what the overall game plan is for the franchise and the organization here, and it's a great first step. But I can also tell you that when you're the hunted instead of the hunter,
right,
it's always a heck of a lot more difficult to repeat. So I'm sure that come next outdoor season, there'll be a huge bullseye on the back of our jerseys, but that makes it even more exciting and more fun.
And more satisfying, too.
Exactly.
No question about it. And that's a great point. Before we turn our attention to the indoor side, the opportunities that this season creates now for the Tropics moving forward in terms of identity, in terms of community support, all those things is something that you can really leverage now, perhaps more than if we just had a good team and maybe made it through to the state finals or something. Talk a little bit about how we can leverage, if you will, now that success going forward and how it raises the expectations not only internally but externally as well now.
Well, I think overall, from a philosophical approach of the franchise, there was some confusion last year, between the PDL team, between the UPSL team, the ZPSL. There was some confusion. So I think we're going to alleviate that going forward next year. What our thoughts and what our game plan is to have a core of the indoor team that we're bringing in this year, along with the team as intact as possible from the outdoor perspective, but market those players, that entity, from a year-round perspective. So, fans can go watch their favorite Tropics player indoor during, what we hope is going to be a very successful indoor season this year. Watch their favorite players, Victor Pereira, Gordy Gerson this year, Drew Ruggles. I mean, I'm probably missing a lot of guys, Hugo Silva, take your pick. And then we're going to try and keep the nucleus of that team together for our outdoor season, which, it's hard to have an upgrade over an 18,
right, perfect.
over a perfect season. But that's sort of the game plan going forward, is to have, again, a pretty set roster as possible and market those two teams at one location, Obviously the RP Funding Center in downtown Lakeland, and the beautiful Lake Myrtle Sports Complex is going to be our primary home, our only home, going forward next year.
Yeah, and some exciting news hopefully coming this fall on that. So keep your attention tuned to fltropics.com, and of course we'll have information here on Tropics Topics, the podcast as well. But just because the outdoor season is over does not mean the work on the outdoor team and the outdoor future has stopped, not by a long shot. Some very big news and decisions being made this fall that will, I think, excite local soccer fans, and we'll talk more about that when the time comes. Let's turn our attention indoors, Chris. We're not that far away from the fourth season now in the Major Arena Soccer League. I know we were joking in the staff meeting. It's only 3 months away. It seems like an eternity, but really it's a very short period of time now for the organization to get turned around, get the guys in, get tickets sold, do all those things that will ultimately spell success. But no question on the field this year that the product on paper is the best by far that it's ever been. The ownership and you and Clay Roberts, head coach, really took an aggressive stance in the offseason to go out and sign literally almost all of the top free agents in the MASL this year to bring them to Tropics. Talk a little bit about what went into that decision, and obviously it should mean a better product and more wins on the floor, but ultimately you do have to win, and that's important too.
Well, it starts and ends essentially with Dr. Yakovides. Doc, as we finally call him, in the office here. Look, we all weren't satisfied with what transpired last year, obviously, over the past, the first 3 years of our franchise history, to be honest with you. So we all felt that there needed to be an upgrade. So, Clay and I got the directive to go out and try and secure the best names possible. And it didn't come cheaply. It's one thing when you're an established club, Brian, and you can attract players based upon, past history and your winning tradition. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more trying when you're trying to attract players to a team that was 6-18 last year. But as soon as we started to sign, we signed the Gordy Gersons of the world, the Drew Ruggles of the world. We brought in Ricardo Carvalho. All those names. People started to buy into that. Saw what sort of team that we're putting together. But as I've cautioned everybody, I can't remember one game that was won on paper.
Right.
Right. I mean, the nucleus is there. The pieces of the puzzle, I think, are there. But, you have to have some luck. You have to, these guys, stay healthy.
Yeah, we know that. Right.
That's a major thing this year is that I think that even if we have injuries this year, that we have quality people better depth.
Yeah.
So, the decision was made, but the expectations are extremely high.
Yep.
And
they should be.
They should be, and all parties, know that going into it.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I know the schedule is supposed to be released probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We've submitted our dates. We're going to have some very exciting news as it pertains to local TV coming up. Exciting, I think every date that we have submitted is either a Saturday or a Sunday. So we should have some really, quality dates to work with. And then obviously from an on-the-field perspective, we're beyond excited. We can't wait for it to start. And, what I preach to the staff here every day is it's T-minus, less than 3 months to opening night.
Yeah.
And that time's going to fly by.
Yeah.
And don't be lulled into a false sense that we got a lot of time, because we don't.
Yeah.
We got to sell those tickets, got to sell those sponsorships, and go from there.
Yeah. One of the things that I think struck me most about the free agents that were brought in was the common thread amongst them about team player. They're tremendous talents individually, but their attitudes and their effort on the field, off the field, in the community just seem top notch. Just guys that fans will immediately fall in love with, like Gordy Gerson and Drew Ruggles and Ricardo Carvalho. Some of those guys seem to be a very common thread to me that of the type of player beyond just talented, because you can be talented but not necessarily as big an asset to a team as your talent might speak to. So I'm curious, in the discussions that you all had, did you all really kind of target almost that type of player in addition to talent, the intangibles that they brought with them to help off the field as well.
Well, let's, again, just being candid here, we had some issues last year off the field, with players that didn't materialize or players that came in and just weren't a good fit.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think that it was the main priority looking to sign. Again, we were looking for top-notch players who are proven commodities at this level. But more likely than not, Brian, it's usually, if you're a top quality player, you're probably going to be a good teammate also. So I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of the guys that we've signed also fit that bill from being a quality teammate, a quality person. And again, just from the little that, spoken to the guys over the phone, met them, a guy like Steven Giroux, who lives in the area now, it really is exciting because, again, not only are they quality players on the field, but so far they all seem to be, they've all bought into the concept.
Right.
And they all have a common goal, which is to, take the Tropics franchise to the next level. And I think, what we're going to preach is that there's nobody bigger than the crest.
Yeah.
There's no I in team. You could use any analogy here,
right.
But I think so far the players that we've signed fit that bill.
Yeah, and you can just see it when they are on the field, guys like Joey Tavernese, who I mentioned, and Gordy Gerson and Drew, and those, they're just unselfish players, yeah. But they have a joy about them when they play the game that's infectious, that's their enthusiasm just radiates as they play, and as a fan, or in my case as a broadcaster, it just is so enjoyable to see that. Not only on the Tropics, but a lot of teams you don't necessarily see a lot of players like that, and that's why I think the fans this year are really going to be able to relate to this team and enjoy this team. Unlike they've enjoyed the past 3 years at certain levels and certain degrees, but this is a whole new level and a whole new degree that I think we'll see here in 2019-20. So any final thoughts as we head into the home stretch here before we kick it off in late fall, probably early December at the RP Funding Center, it sounds like, for our home opener, and we'll obviously keep fans abreast of that as well on Tropics Topics and at fltropics.com, and of course all the Tropics social media sites. But any final thoughts, Chris, for the fan base out there as they get ready themselves for another season of Florida Tropics soccer?
Well, again, Brian, I mean, the excitement level is to a level where I've never seen it here in Lakeland. Obviously winning an outdoor national championship with the club that we put together, the anticipation is tremendous. The expectations are through the roof. And just speaking philosophically, where the franchise was, when Doc took over, 2-3 years ago to where it is now, we've come worlds. It's one of the better franchises in the MASL. We got a great front office here that we're putting together now. But the bottom line is that we need the fans to come out, support us, buy some tickets, do some sponsorships. Because again, this is a business, and I think Doc has invested a lot of capital and a lot of time and a lot of effort into making this thing successful. So now we're looking for that support, and like I said, it's not that far away. We're almost into September now, and there's no leaves to turn brown down here,
or snow to shovel.
Or
that's the other good
snow
news.
to shovel. But it's right around the corner.
Yeah,
so all the
is.
Tropic fans, we're looking for your support. Come on out, and because I can tell you that any person that we've turned the game on to
loves it.
Yeah. So we've got a great product, and hopefully this year we'll have the team to back it up.
Yeah, and it's a great, entertaining 2 hours of action, just nonstop. Families love it. Kids love it because it's an easy sport to follow and understand, and with the talent that the Tropics will have on the floor this year, it'll be very impressive. So, Chris, thank you for being our inaugural guest on Tropics Topics. We will continue in just a moment. We will talk Sun Conference soccer when we return on our first ever Tropics Topics podcast. Thanks for joining us here on Tropics Topics, your new podcast for all things soccer here in Polk County, Central and West Central Florida. Not only the Tropics Soccer, of course, every edition, but we want to fan out, branch out, and look at some of the other soccer happenings in our area as well. And in this first edition, we want to talk a little Sun Conference soccer. If you're not familiar with the Sun Conference, you should be, because there are 3 Polk County teams as part of that conference, including Weber International, Warner University, and of course right here in Lakeland, Southeastern University as well. And we are joined today by the women's coach at Weber International, that's Brian Fallon. And Brian, thank you for joining us today on Tropics Topics, and we are excited for you guys because you're off to a 3-0 start here on this fall season. So first of all, let's dive in and talk a little bit about the Weber women's program and where you're at and what your expectations are here for the 2019 fall season.
Well, thank you for having us, Brian. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be able to be involved and certainly, be able to add something to the area. When you look around and we look at the Florida Tropics program and all the steps that they're taking, certainly, I think soccer in this area is really evolving. As far as, how is Weber and where are we going? I mean, we're just, in my mind, we're kind of in a unique situation. We really started building a team culture that's very, very strong. What I see is a lot of pluses at this point. I don't really see any real negatives that stick out, other than the fact if you want to refer it, we've got some learning to do. But other than that, I think that we're a talented team. We did a great recruiting class this last year. And, our expectations are obviously clearly to make it into the conference tournament and then see what we can do from there, and develop it from there as well, and then continually improve upon that every year going forward.
And one of the neat things about your roster, and if I'm not mistaken, this is just your second year at Weber, right?
That's correct. I actually came in the end of spring last year. So I got there end of March, early April. So it was kind of a kickstart. Had to go very quickly because certainly it was even past National Signing Day, so that makes it a little bit more difficult to, when you don't have much of a signing class and you have to build that signing class after all the players have been picked over to some extent.
Yeah, that's always a challenge to be sure. But one of the ways you helped build this roster, I was noticing taking a look at it before we talked today, is you really have relied pretty heavily on local kids. And when I say local kids, I mean a lot right here from Polk County, Lake Wales and Haines City on the roster, Lake Gibson. Really throughout Polk County, you've got players up and down the roster. So talk maybe a little bit about that, about relying on local talent to kind of build the program.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer. I've always worked in the club circuit in the past, and what I've always seen is there is local talent. I know plenty of times coaches are always looking for the magic bullet somewhere out in California or Georgia or South Carolina or things along those lines. Sometimes I think those magic bullets are right here, in our local clubs. And I think it's important that we get involved with them. We support those clubs. Some of the initiatives that we've been taking this year is we've invited each one of the clubs to be a part of international walkouts. Send out the younger players, let them be part of the international walkouts, walking out the girls from both teams to be involved, and then certainly scouting out of those clubs as well. Like you said, we've got girls from Lakeland, we got girls from the Winter Haven Club. We've got girls from different areas. We're recruiting out of Auburndale, all these different places, because I believe there is talent to be found there. I think it's just beholden to the coaches to go find it.
And not only Polk County, but a very heavy influence on Tampa area players as well, it seems.
And that's correct. I think traditionally we did always do quite a bit of recruiting out of Tampa, but we've had just some really good success getting some girls out of Tampa Bay United and some of these other clubs that are out there that seem a little bit untapped to us. So it's been exciting. We spent a lot of time down in the Tampa area this last year. I felt like it was my second home. But you know what? At the end of the day, I look and I see the fruit that's coming out of that recruiting. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I also think we've opened up our eyes as well as looking all over. We have kids now from Gainesville. We have kids from Jacksonville. We have kids from St. Johns County. We have kids from all over the place that we've just kind of, even as far north as Nassau County now, which is literally a border county with Georgia. So we've really opened it up, and said, listen, we love our local kids. We want those kids in here. Certainly fabulous talent, and even Tampa, fabulous talent. But we're looking for talent. That's what we're really looking for. And, we tell the local kids all the time, and even this year in our recruiting class, and I'm certainly not going to tell you who those kids are, but we're looking at local kids right now that we are very deeply, heavily observing, following up with, staying in touch with.
And I promise I won't ask and won't tell, but they know who they are, and you know who they are, and that's most important, and that's exciting certainly for local soccer fans. And you talk about bearing fruit. You're off to an undefeated start this year. I know you lost a couple of games as we all kind of waited out the threat from Dorian and had to change plans, but you are 3-0 in the games that you've played, and that includes a real thriller very recently in your most recent win over a local rival, Warner University, in overtime. That really had to be a satisfying win and a lot of fun for you and the girls to come out of the W with that. Talk about that game a little bit, how it went into overtime and the eventual game winner.
It was an interesting game in the sense that it was kind of exactly what we expected, in the sense that, they came out, they played very hard, they played very strong. Warner's not a back-down organization. They're going to come at you. They're going to stress you. They're going to play very difficult. They're going to come right at you. But, at the same time, what a class organization. I mean, anything we needed, they took good care of us, and certainly even to the point of providing just excellent competition on the field last night. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of their organization, their coaches as well. They're good people. The game was, just a really tough game. I think we played as well as we could. Certainly we had some misses, and especially towards the end of the second half. But, at the end of the day, what you have to do is you got to be able to recover from that, and that shows the character and the mettle of the team. And, at the end of the day, I was very pleased with the temper of our team in the sense that they were able to just immediately recover, come right back, go into overtime with great confidence, knowing what they needed to do, and then certainly execute when it was needed. So, just again, a great game. I couldn't ask for any better competition. That's exactly, it was interesting at the break when we were getting ready to go into overtime. Myself and my assistant coaches were saying the same thing to the team, and that is, this is what you want. You want good competition. You want this kind of rivalry. This is a good game for you. This is a good battle for you to be in. So let's go into it. Let's go with our heads held high and look for success.
And for people that have not seen a Sun Conference soccer game or basketball, or in some cases with a lot of the schools football, I mean, I think one of the common denominators from people that walk away from some of those games is how impressed they are with the level of skill and quality in that particular sport. So let's take a look at the conference on the women's soccer side overall. Southeastern, I know, is one of the teams to beat. Who else in the conference is high on your list of teams to beat, and where do you see Weber and maybe Warner also figuring in, and Southeastern, since they're the local teams, once all is said and done in conference play this year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly Southeastern. I mean, just again, a good organization. Randy over there does a great job with this program. He's always going to be a team to beat. From a rivalry standpoint, we're always going to have to go at Warner. But there's Kaiser. We got Kaiser as well. They're hiding out over there in South Florida, and they have a lot of tools in their bag. They go right at it. Very intelligent soccer players when you look at it. The teams to beat for me right now is aim for everybody. And I know that sounds like like almost like I'm grabbing a handful of darts and throwing them at the dartboard. But the reality is, we play one game 1 week at a time. So never trying to look past the next team. We're always trying to say, listen, we got to grind this one out, and then we go from there. So, there's been some shockers. Last year we went into a game, I think the team was a little bit overzealous, thinking that they were going to beat a particular team from down south. And sure enough, guess what? The results weren't what we wanted. And I think it was a great learning experience for the team to see that, that you really have to stay focused on the task at hand. So I'm not an overconfident type guy. I'm the kind of guy who likes to grind it out, game to game, week to week, and that's really what I see. But certainly we've got some powerhouses, and again, Southeastern, Warner being a rival, and then Kaiser, it's going to be tough. But you know what? I mean, I have great confidence in the Weber women's soccer program. They're very, they've grown over the last year. They're a unique culture now. And I think, you know what, if we keep doing what we're supposed to do, we're going to have the success that we want. And that success, that's first, let's get into the conference tournament, right? And then we'll kind of grind it out from there, just like everything else we do.
Well, we certainly encourage local fans to check out the schedules. They're available online at all the schools' athletic websites, and you can find out the upcoming schedule. I think you've got a rematch with Warner coming up later this year, if I'm not mistaken. So if you don't get out if you don't get out to any other game, you might want to get out to that one. It'll be a good one. Weber will be looking for their second win of the season against Warner, and the Lady Royals will be looking for revenge from that overtime loss on September 10th. So, Coach, thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural voyage here on Tropics Topics. We appreciate everything you do for soccer here in Polk County and certainly at Weber. Good luck during the Sun Conference season, and perhaps we'll check in with you when we get down into the postseason.
Thank you so much. And again, it was a complete pleasure of ours to be involved in this.
Brian Fallon, he is the women's soccer coach at Weber International University, and our thanks to him and best of luck for the upcoming season. So that'll do it for the initial podcast of Tropics Topics. We will be back shortly with our second edition. We will take a look at additional Sun Conference soccer, but we'll look on the men's side. Of course, the Southeastern University men's head coach is Clay Roberts, who is the Florida Tropics head coach as well. So we will be talking about some of the men's soccer goings-on in the Sun Conference in our next edition. Until then, have a great week, everybody.